couldn't wait. Hey, it's Romania Black. No, I couldn't wait. Not after that cliffhanger. There was no way. Nope, I'm sorry. I don't have any comments to talk about before the start of this video. I'm recording this before part 34 even premieres on Patreon, but I just could not wait. I was like, no, I've got to know what's going to happen. I just have to know. And oh my gosh, it's just... Oh, this story, this volume so far, tease and a cliffhanger. That is all this volume has been so far. And we are a good fourth of the way through. It is going by very quickly. I felt like volume 2, which granted, this volume is not crazy long. Like, just looking at the page numbers of when there's a lot in the glossary, which I obviously don't look at, but it's only 368 pages for this volume. It's a lot shorter. It's kind of like more close to volume 1. Volume 1 was fairly short, but this volume 2 felt like it took a long time because it was a very big volume, and volume 3 felt like ages. It felt like we were on it for ages because there's just so much happening. But this one, we are flying through at lightning speed, and I'm like, whoa, hold on. And I know we're still going to take a long time to get through it, but it feels like it's going by very quickly, and it's a lot more fast paced than the last volume was. It was just boom, boom, chaos, chaos, cliffhanger, cliffhanger. And I was like, please stop it, XTX. I got to get my breath, got to catch my breath, and you're not giving me a chance to do so. But man, last volume or last set of chapters, we just tabled the Venerable of Empty Words, the Reverend of Empty Words. We just tabled him for a later discussion, just pushed that aside and said, you know what, we'll just deal with that later. And I'm like, can we deal with it now? And we can't. And then Shi Lian, like against Hua Cheng's wishes, of course, goes to the heavenly realm to check in with the Windmaster, who has lost their spiritual powers, wants to become a human because they're just miserable about it. And their brother, the Watermaster, is hiding him away, presumably until he can complete his third trial and then be strong enough to save him. And I'm like, okay. And that's kind of, I didn't talk about this in the last set of chapter reactions. It is kind of a thing where the Watermaster is sort of embodying a little bit of Shi Lian in this moment, because he's like, oh, well, I'll just get enough power and I'll be able to save you. And we've been down that song and dance before with volume 2 and volume 3. We're like, oh, no, Watermaster, you need to go read volume 3 because that line of thinking will get you in trouble. And so I'm a little bit concerned about the Watermaster, because I think that he's so desperate to save his brother and to help him that he's going to overlook something, or something bad is going to happen. And I'm like, oh, I'm not ready for that. We talked about the Reverend of Empty Words just being this just insanely dark force. I'm like, he seems like he's even stronger than Chi-Rong, which doesn't take much, but I feel like Chi-Rong, now that we're getting into these darker, more strong ghosts and ghost presence, like the fetus spirit, like the Reverend of Empty Words, it is dawning on me that Chi-Rong is kind of just a calamity by sheer spite. I feel like the other ghosts just hate him so much and don't want to deal with him that they just let him weasel his way into being a calamity. It's like he's doing the exact same thing in the afterlife as he was doing in his mortal life. He just kind of weaseled his way into positions and just poked enough that people were like, I'm just done, let him have it. And that's what he's doing as a ghost. He just pokes long enough that he's like, let me be a supreme, let me be a calamity. And they don't let him be a supreme, but they're like, fine, you can be a calamity, whatevs. Because honestly, the Reverend of Empty Words seems like they would be a much more fitting calamity than Chi-Rong, but whatever, right? We can't control that, you know? So, but yeah, things are getting very interesting. And Shi Lian, of course, can't keep his nose out of anybody else's business. He has to go in and try to save him. It's like, okay. Hua Cheng doesn't know for now, but I'm like, you just told him you wouldn't do this. And he's working with the Earthmaster, which Ming-Yi, I'm all for Ming-Yi at this point. I'm like, Ming-Yi's been falsely accused throughout the whole Reverend of Empty Words at the start of this volume, and they're just trying to help their BFF that they don't want to admit is their BFF. And I'm like, I respect that, Ming-Yi. I do. Real quick, a couple things. One, I'm wearing my actual glasses, not my UV glasses, because I had to take my contacts out. So I hate the glare that these have on them, but I need to keep them on for a while. So apologies for that. But also, it is freezing cold outside. It is nearly April and it's 20 degrees. I'm like, weather, figure it out. So I have like the hottest cup of coffee I can manage. I've got this. We're good. But I'm really excited. We are going to be looking at chapters 116 and 117 today, which is only spanning from pages 117 to 138. So it's a little bit shorter than last week in terms of page content. But I literally, the next chapter was connected to chapter 119, and it was going to be either 30 pages or 80. And I was like, no, I can't do it. So I don't know how long the discussion and stuff will be for today. Who knows? MXTX does have a habit where some chapters seem like they go by like that, and then some chapters you're like, there's so much. But when we last left off, that Shilian and the Windmaster and the Earthmaster were underneath the heavenly court, underneath the heavenly realm, like trying to dig and burrow with Ming Yi's magic crescent-shaped Sailor Moon-esque trowel, trying to like dig their way out of the tunnel. It feels like a video game. And they went under someone's room, and the person stuck a sword down in between Shilian's legs, like they know they were there. So, who is that? That's going to be the great thing. Like, who is the spirit that wants to try to hurt them? Is it... I don't think it's Junwoo. I feel like Junwoo would have a much more pragmatic strategy than just sticking a sword down in there. I don't think it's Ling Wen, because they're off doing other things. I don't think it's Pei Ming, because that seems like, I don't know, I'm not getting Pei Ming vibes. It's not Lan Chanchu, because I don't think he's back yet, and we're not ready for him to see Shilian after the whole Qirong thing. So I don't know, is it Jijin? Is it the one guy that like was really grumpy that we saw for like 2 seconds? Is it him? Because he seems like the type of character that would do that, maybe. Is it somebody new? Is it Feng Xin? I don't think it would be Mu Qing. I could see it being Feng Xin because he would be one to be like, meh. But I don't know. I'm really curious. Or is it a new character we've not met yet? So that could be too. Again, we've talked about the four legendary tales, and we know that Shilian and the Windmaster are two of those individuals. Two of those individuals that are cursed. I think that's rather interesting. Shilian has had a curse upon him, seemingly, throughout this entire story. And now the Windmaster has a curse upon them. I'm starting to sense a pattern. So if Pei Ming is the man that broke his sword, then he should be wary. And maybe we're going to get Pei Ming focused. Who knows? But then we don't know the princess. So again, there's characters that we probably have not met yet. This is only volume 4. We're only near the halfway point of this entire series. So there's lots more things that can happen. But with that being said, I'm really excited, y'all, to see what we get and to start off these chapters. I don't know what to expect, but I'm really, really excited. I couldn't wait. I woke up this morning and was like, I had planned on waiting until I got some more comments, and I was like, no, it's a cliffhanger. I can't wait. So if you guys have comments about last week's video, I will definitely address them if need be for the following week. And plus I'm going on a trip in a few weeks, so I technically should record ahead. So I'm going to use that as an excuse. But I'm so excited, y'all. But let's not waste any more time. We are going to start Heaven Official's Blessing, chapters 116 and 117. And we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1. Oh, and let's go. Eve to the last day of autumn, an unscrupulous substitution. Sure. Sure. Okay. Although Shilian had certainly lived his days as someone who was impotent, but pretending not to have a thing and truly losing the thing forever was still fundamentally different. He's like, I don't want to lose my dick today. And meanwhile, somewhere Hua Cheng's like, don't do it. Oh, a sheen of cold sweat covers his body. Dodge! He's like Piccolo off Dragon Ball Z Abridged. Dodge! Oh my gosh. He took that chance to move forward. Oh, he pulled at the Windmaster and cried, watch out! The blade plunged down again and slashed right before Shi Ching Chong. It practically pierced down right next to his head. Oh my god! Oh, that was close. How'd you know it was where it would come from? I don't know, I guessed! Shilian's like, I've been targeted enough in my life that I kind of just know when things are coming to get me. It was pure instinct. When it came to a killing aura, he was trained to the point of being able to react without thinking. Okay, soon after, a second, third, fourth blade, all came plunging down, each of the sharp shining blades blocking the three's way out and way back. Oh, they've opened fire from above. Okay, each booming sound became louder and louder, and the tremors were growing each time, coming closer and closer. There were sharp blades blocking them from the front and the back, and they were all keen and sharp young treasured swords. Function was a senior, so who knew if he could fight them head on? Ah, okay, so it's basically the idea of Function being an older sword versus these brand new shiny swords. So maybe they're younger. Ming Yi took out the crescent-shaped moon shovel from who knows where and started digging. I just love that it's established they don't know where it comes from. Where does he hide it this whole time? Where indeed. And then at the side wall of the tiny space with great difficulty, the Windmaster was so exasperated he was going to spew his soul out. Oh no, because he doesn't have any spiritual power. He's like, how can you even do this? Mingzhong, can you hurry up? It's all your fault for not using this spiritual device for so long. You've got to be more intimate with your devices, all right? Look at how stiff and rusty it's become. To be fair, having it become rusty was forgivable. After all, there really weren't any other heavenly officials besides Xi Lian who could do something like carry a shovel in and out everywhere every day without feeling ashamed. Oh, Ming Yi, shut up! Ming Yi's like, I'm trying to save you! Don't be mad, don't be mad. The tunnel's dug through. Xi Lian's like, calm down, lover's quarrel. Soon enough, the moment Ming Yi put pressure on his shovel, a hole opened up before them, and with the shovel raised, he burrowed crazily ahead while the Windmaster, in the middle, cheered him on crazily. He's like, yes, go do it, Xi Lian. As the only non-crazy person, Xi Lian brought up the rear. As the only non-crazy person, that's a phrase. Like, Xi Lian's like, I'm the only one with sanity in this whole thing. And that's saying something. The treasured shovel of the Earthmaster was indeed magical, and with only a few strokes, a new tunnel over 10 meters was dug. After a while, when he looked back, the hole behind was gradually closing up on his own, but above the place where they were trapped, a thin light leaked down. Oh, it's going to drill through. And then Ming Yi picked up the pace and burrowed even crazier, but his movement stopped and he looked up. They both sensed it. It was completely silent above them without any movement. It should be an empty palace above. Since their tunnel was already discovered, they should get out first before trying anything else. Ming Yi changed his direction and started digging up. Are you too sure this place really has no one that will see us when we get out? We haven't heard anything unless they're sleeping. I mean, of course, heavenly officials usually didn't need to sleep, never mind sleeping in the middle of the day, so that possibility shouldn't exist. Yet who knew, the moment Ming Yi's shovel broke through and the three emerged, poking their heads out, inhaling fresh air, before they even exhaled across from them, they saw a bed. And upon the bed was a youth with his arms and legs sprawled out, soundly asleep. There were actually heaven officials who slept in the middle of the day? Okay, so this is someone different than who attacked them with the swords. The person with the swords, we don't know, that was attacking them. No clue. This is a different person. Roused by movement, the youth rolled over and sat up, his curly hair a bird's nest from his slumber. He furrowed his brows and scratched his head, watching the three heads from across his bed with sleepy eyes, looking like he couldn't understand why such things would appear in his palace. The three pretended like nothing was the matter and hastily crawled out of the hole, like, just don't mind us. However, just as the Windmaster crawled out, he suddenly cried out. There was a hand that caught his ankle. Oh my god! It's Pei Ming! Oh! So it was Pei Ming! Oh shit! The owner of the hand was Pei Ming. Even if he was in a tunnel, he was still courteous. Oh, it was! I was just gonna ask which little mouse was burrowing under my palace. Xingshang, why are you out and about? Where are you going? You know how your brother gets when he's mad. Hurry back before he finds out. Reese flew out and struck the hand away. I can't believe it's Pei Ming! I was like, no, there's no way. Oh, Pei Ming hopped out and said, Your Highness, Lord Earthmaster, do you two have nothing better to do? Encouraging the Windmaster to run away from home for no reason is quite preposterous, isn't it? Oh my god, he's trying to be besties for his bro, the Watermaster. Lord Windmaster might be Lord Watermaster's younger brother, but he still has been a heavenly official for hundreds of years. General Pei, please don't speak as if he is no more than 3. Xi Lian, stand up to him! If we're going to talk about reason, to imprison a heavenly colleague for no reason, no matter how you spin it, it's still Lord Watermaster who's acting preposterous, wouldn't you say? Ooh! If his guess wasn't wrong, then the Windmaster really couldn't stay in the upper court any longer. Oh, okay, so it is. It's Chan Zhizhen. It is him! Best day! So he's got the curly hair. watching them with a dazed look. So he's really young, seeming still confused by the whole situation. Pei Ming raised his sword and said darkly, "Qi Ying, stop looking and come give me a hand. Apprehend them first." After some contemplation, Chuan Yizhen actually decided to assist. He leapt down, picked up the bed he was just lying on, and hurled it at Pei Ming! He did indeed give a hand, only it was to help Shi Lian and company. The bed crashed into the unsuspecting Pei Ming, and he was flabbergasted. "Qi Ying, why did you hit me?" Chuan Yizhen waved his hand at Shi Lian, probably gesturing for them to hurry and leave. Shi Lian and company were stunned for a moment before hastily making their way out. Oh my god! Yes! Oh, I mean, yeah, didn't you, wasn't Qi Ying the one that Pei Ming wanted Pei Su to replace? So, of course he was going to be like, screw you. Maybe the Windmaster was injured and didn't have the energy, but he only jogged a few steps before his face turned pale, and Shi Lian came around to help pull him up. However, Ming Yi pulled him over directly and carried him on his back. Ming Yi! Shi Lian placed a hand on the door and dug out 2 dice and turned back to that youth. "Thank you so much." Chuan Yizhen was still bashing at Pei Ming wildly, his moves viciously aggressive without method. If it wasn't for Pei Ming's own skills, if it was anyone else who was taking this beating, their heads would have been covered in blood by now. Pei Ming's veins were popping out all over, and he yelled, "Guards, stop them!" Yet before he called for guards, Shi Lian had already tossed out the dice, opened the door, and charged out. He shut the door behind them, slipping the heck out of heaven. Slipping the heck out of heaven! However, what he had never expected was after he closed the door and turned around, what appeared before him was a Hua Cheng with one leg up, stepping on a new donation box. His upper body was bare, and he was wiping at his sweat. One little rundown Puchi shrine couldn't possibly hold this many prominent figures, and Shi Lian felt like he was going to suffocate. There was also one possessed outside, howling unsuspectingly, creating noise. "Goosey, come give Daddy's leg a little massage chop!" Ah! What is this chaos? It was a moment before Hua Cheng tossed aside the Ming he was using to shave wood and raised his brow slightly. Oh my god! He's just like, "So, welcome back, Gege." The color of, oh god, and we're gonna have a whole damn paragraph about Shi Lian gawking over his swelt body. The color of his skin and the curves of his bare upper hat were exceedingly beautiful, extremely eye-catching, so much that Shi Lian's eyes were gonna fall out of their sockets. Even if he didn't actually see anything properly, he still couldn't stop the blood rushing to his head, making his eyes go dark. Shi Lian fumbled and tumbled to his side and opened his arms wide, blocking Ming Yi and the Windmaster's view. "Close your eyes! Quick! Close your eyes!" The two faces together stiffened, and they watched them with an odd look. Hua Cheng placed his hand on Shi Lian's shoulder and said, laughing, "Gege, why are you nervous? You know exactly what you're doing." Only then did Shi Lian snap out of it. "That's right. What was he all nervous for? Hua Cheng wasn't a lady, so why? So what if he was laboring half naked?" He intended for this. He knew Shi Lian was going to come back at some point, and he's like, "When Gege gets back, I'm going to look the best I've ever looked for him, and he'll never want to leave after that." Still, he didn't drop his arms, doing his best to cover Hua Cheng completely. Just put on some clothes! As Gege wishes. Then he calmly grabbed for a shirt, slowly putting it on, taking his time. Oh my god, it's like a reverse strip tease. Stop! Stop! Watching him look all nonchalant and languid, the Windmaster said awkwardly, yes, I'm sorry for the intrusion. I didn't think you guys, you two are pretty much, anyway, just, the Windmaster knows! The Windmaster knows! And they're like, oh god, it's like a reverse, it's not a praise kink, but it's just like, it's a clothes kink. Oh my god. My lord, if you have something to say, then just say it. So if there's any misunderstanding, I can explain. Don't use ha 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 instead, Shi Lian said. Shi Lian's like, just say what you're saying. They were pressed for time, and Pei Ming might pursue them all the way over here, so they couldn't stay in Puxi Shrine for long. Ming Yi put down the Windmaster and started drawing the distance, shortening her way to the ground. Shi Lian was just about to ask where they were going when suddenly He heard Hua Cheng behind him. Shilian remembered his advice regarding not getting close to the Windmaster and Company and turned to him in spite of himself. I'm sorry about all this, Son Long. Hua Cheng was already finished dressing himself and replied, I already knew you wouldn't just stand back and watch. After a pause, he then smiled. But why should Gege apologize to me? You remembered what I said a few days ago, but did you forget something else I told you? What? Suddenly he remembered. That night at the Green Ghost Lair, the thing Hua Cheng had told him. Just keep doing what you want to do. Oh, it's like, he's like, I've told you what I advise you not to do, but in the end, you need to do what's right by you. Oh, good. I forgot about that. We will talk about this with this discussion. That changes a lot from the previous discussion to now. After having remembered, Shilian blinked, not knowing what else to say, only knowing he suddenly wanted to do something for Hua Cheng. Oh, you MXTX! Yet at that moment, there really wasn't anything he could do for him. Oh my God, just like kiss him on the cheek, or hold his hand, or give him a hug. Feeling a little discouraged, he suddenly noticed the collar of Hua Cheng's red robes and said, oh, wait! Then he rushed to help Hua Cheng fix his collar. It turns out the collar of the robe Hua Cheng randomly put on wasn't properly flipped out. Having fixed it, Shilian inspected him for a moment before smiling. There! Hua Cheng smiled too. Thanks. A small voice inside Shilian echoed, I'm the one who should be thanking you. Oh, Shilian, honey. Oh. On the other side, the two others seemed to not be able to look over anymore. Even the circle drawn under Mingyi's hands didn't seem so round any longer. Once he finished drawing the array, the door was opened again. Shilian had thought he would see some gloomy cave or some spectacular palace. Unexpectedly, outside the door was a large expanse of farming fields. Oh, because Banyu's with. Oh, are we going to farming fields? Are we going to the Rainmaster? Far in the distance was a lush green bamboo groves and verdant mountains. Maybe not. And farmers were scattered throughout, laboring the fields. There was also a large, glistening, buff ox plowing. Yes, no, it is! It is the Rainmaster! Okay, this scenery almost made Shilian think they were still at Pucci Village, and he was stunned for a moment. Mingyi had already walked out with the Windmaster on his back. Hua Cheng also stepped out before him. Okay, so he's gone with them. Good. They just left Chi-Rong with Goosey and Long Ying again. Oh my God. The four walked along a ridge of fields, and maybe it was all in his mind, but that black ox seemed to be staring at them the entire way. After walking for a bit, they found a small cottage. After the four entered and sat down, the Windmaster blew out a long breath. Are we not fleeing anymore? Shilian asked. What if General Pei chases us here? Hua Cheng looked at the outside for a while, focusing especially on that black ox. Before closing the door. He said nonchalantly, don't worry. He wouldn't dare mess with the master of this land. There's no benefit to it. Even the water tyrant won't be able to do anything rash. That black ox is the Rainmaster, isn't it? I bet it is. I bet. And so we should see Banyu, right? Because Banyu's here. If that's where we are. Shilian contemplated, but still spoke up. Son Long, this whole thing is a mess and probably implicates too much in the Heavenly Court. It may be best if you don't hang around. However, Hua Cheng only chuckled. What goes on in the upper court has nothing to do with me. I'm only sticking around with you to sightsee. Shut up. Suddenly the Windmaster spoke up. You should all stop hanging around. Oh. The other three in the cottage looked to him, and the Windmaster continued. His Highness is right. This whole thing is a mess, and there's too many involved. I'm going to stay shut up here. My friends, there's no need to help anymore. Let's end it here. However, Shilian said slowly, Lord Windmaster, whether things end here isn't up to you. It's up to the Lord Watermaster and the Reverend of Empty Words. Hearing this, the Windmaster's face stiffened. Lord Windmaster, I have a question. I hope you won't mind. Does the Reverend of Empty Words have something held over yours and the Watermaster's heads? Ching-Chong's face was paling. That night at the Terrace of Cascading Wine, Shilian had already set up an extremely secure defense array. As long as the Windmaster didn't open the door to leave, he wouldn't be harmed. Yet why did he take the initiative to open the door? Oh, thank God we're getting maybe answers to this. Unless someone connected to his private communication array, and the first thing that came out of their mouth was blackmail, giving the Windmaster no room to fight back nor raise alarm, and he could only follow as instructed. Shilian sat down by the table. I'm more inclined to think it's blackmail against Lord Watermaster, because I believe you hadn't initially known whatever had transpired. Which was why his reaction was so strong after having learned, generating such sharp rejection against the upper court. such that he would rather descend into the mortal realm to become a drifting vagabond and to stay in the heavens as a god. Mingy frowned. What blackmail? The Windmaster wasn't a gullible fool. If he fell victim to someone and lost his powers, the normal reaction shouldn't be rage and drive to investigate the truth or lashing out at the culprit. Yet he did none of that. There was rage, but it wasn't directed against the Reverend of Empty Words, but against his own older brother. And to the others, he only said, "This ends here." This was all entirely abnormal, unless it was under one special case. Namely, that the Windmaster's ascension was abnormal in the first place. Ooh. To go against the heavens and alter face, to raise someone who couldn't ascend upon the divine altar, was outrageously audacious, a treacherous heresy. Shelian had never heard of something like this. If this was true and it got out, it would for sure cause a tidal wave. Just think, everyone wishes to ascend, but if anyone could use such a method, the laws of the universe would be rendered irrelevant, completely worthless. This conjecture might be absurd, but the more he thought, the more it made sense. Ever since the Windmaster was born, the Reverend of Empty Words had clung on to him, and the only way to escape it was to ascend, and miraculously he had ascended in a mere few years. A pair of blood brothers ascended one after the other. What a beautiful tale, but also what a coincidence. Oh! Shelian never wanted to question the reality of the Windmaster's ascension, but if the Windmaster had ascended naturally, how could his powers have been so easily sucked dry? If it was so easy for a monster to turn a god into a human, who knows how many heavenly officials would have already fallen victim? Unless the Windmaster was mortal in the first place. Unless when the Windmaster ascended, the Watermaster did something underhanded. Aggressively using rare treasures, oh my god, and devices to help the path of cultivation wasn't out of line. To ascend by way of massacre and battle in times of power change within the mortal realm wasn't out of line either. After all, the fate of the world was thus. Honor must be accompanied by blood, and after ascension all was wiped clean. However, some things would be out of line. If a mortal or some heavenly official did something underhanded, conducted rituals of evil to harm the lives of others, for the sake of having someone else ascend, that would be a completely different matter. Lord Windmaster, the night you ascended was the eve of the last day of autumn. Yes. After a pause, the Windmaster continued, I remembered that day when we were in the town of Fugu. Eve of the last day of autumn. Wasn't that the same day I ascended? I'd wanted to ask you guys about it at first, to see if it might be a clue or if it was connected somehow. Maybe it was a coincidence, but it felt hollow, so I ended up not asking. But now you know it's related. It's related, of course it's very related. Why did the Reverend of Empty Words choose that day to first send the Windmaster to the town of Fugu to watch the bloody fire social parade, then bring him to the terrace of cascading wine to maim? Of course it wouldn't go through all that pain for no reason. Shelian connected the timing in the two places together. Many years ago, on the eve of the last day of autumn, in the town of Fugu, a mortal named Scholar Hua broke down and murdered countless many. Also on the eve of the last day of autumn at the terrace of cascading wine, the Windmaster ascended. With this, it was more obvious what the Reverend of Empty Words wanted to say. The Windmaster, your ascension had everything to do with the death of the hero of this bloody fire social. That dreaded but logical conjecture Shelian formulated was this. After Shiwudu ascended, in order to have the Windmaster escape the Reverend of Empty Words, he secretly found a mortal who matched all the requirements and conducted an evil ritual, making that man take the Windmaster's misfortune in his place. That man was no doubt the impoverished, exceptionally clever, yet somehow endlessly unlucky to the point his entire family was ruined, Scholar Hua. Scholar Hua took on the Windmaster's name, and the Reverend of Empty Words was deceived. Then, that meant his original fate was taken by the Windmaster. That same night before the last day of autumn, one experienced the taste of hell on earth. The other, under immensely powerful protection, successfully ascended. Yet the fate of those two were originally completely opposite. Oh my gosh! Oh no! They swapped out their fates. Watermaster! Oh my god. Oh my god! Chapter 117. Gods appointing gods. Lesser than ghosts devouring ghosts. Ooh, I love that title. I love that title so much. Shelian continued, I dare say the Scholar Hua has the birth name Sean, and the details of his birth are exactly the same as my lord's. To commit fraudulent deeds and deceive the heavens couldn't be managed so casually, and not just anyone would do. There were certain requirements that needed to be met. From the 3 questions the Reverend of Empty Words asked when it first captured the Windmaster, it firmly retained 2 things. First, the name of its prey contained the word Sean. Oh! Second, the birth information of its prey. However, it didn't recognize the prey's face, and had needed the Windmaster to approach it for it to see. Since the She family was speedy in remedying the situation, other than those 2 items, the Reverend probably knew nothing else. Thus, if there must be one who could take the Windmaster's place to take on his misfortunes, it must be a male who was born the same year, the same month, the same day, the same time, and their name must contain Sean. How difficult it must be to find a scapegoat. The world is vast. Even if Shiwudu used everything to search, there might still not be one. Using the powers and influence of his Watermaster status, he cast the net and actually found someone. And it was one who possessed the potential to ascend, about to go through his first heavenly calamity. Such luck, how could he let it go? Compared to the arduous cultivation, this was a convenient shortcut. If he missed this chance, it might not come again. Having made it to this point, Ming Yi also seemed to have drawn the same conclusions, and his face was growing darker. The Windmaster first nodded, then suddenly seemed to have remembered something. He looked to Hua Cheng, who was leaning against the door. After all, something like this shouldn't be discussed before a ghost. However, Hua Cheng only chuckled lightly with his arms crossed. Don't need to look at me, Windmaster. The one you should worry about isn't me. I have nothing to do with this whole business. Instead, why don't you concern yourself with whether anyone else in the upper court has gotten a hold of this weakness of your brother's? Ooh, Ming Yi accused darkly, you really do have spies in heaven. Hua Cheng replied lazily, don't you already know that? Ooh! Lord Earthmaster was originally sent to the Ghost City to investigate this, but it seemed that the spy was planted deeply, and even after over a decade, they still weren't found out. Hua Cheng said this whole business has nothing to do with him, so naturally Shi Lian believed him and didn't think more on it. Yet Hua Cheng also said, why not worry about the others in the upper court, which reminded Shi Lian of another thing. So he asked, Lord Windmaster, that night at the Terrace of Cascading Wine, why did you open the doors to the protection array yourself? Did someone call out? Who was that person? Yeah, it was the Reverend of Empty Words. It said, How did it know your verbal password? Ming Yi's face was dark. Isn't it because this guy just had to go around and make friends, yapping nonstop whether others are free or not? He talks too much. The Windmaster was aggrieved. Ming Zhang, you can't say it like that. The ones who call on me are all heavenly officials of the upper court. I've never given anything personal away to that creature. Since that Reverend of Empty Words has been lying low for so many years, now it's returned and can uncover the Lord Watermaster's secret so thoroughly. Then to figure out Lord Windmaster's verbal password shouldn't be hard. Someone must have leaked your verbal password. Whether intentional or not, it's still worth investigating. So did you see what it looked like? What did it do after calling you out? The Windmaster's head seemed to start hurting. I don't know what it looks like. It cast a spell. I couldn't see it clearly. He was vague and didn't say what he saw either. Ming Yi was becoming frosty. Shi Lian figured it was probably the gory scenes of the Bloody Fire social, and those were certainly difficult to describe. A moment later, the Windmaster sighed. I'm the useless one. If I could ascend on my own, none of this would have happened. The Windmaster's original fate was probably considered pretty good in mortal terms already. Otherwise, that Reverend of Empty Words wouldn't have set its eyes on him. However, it still might be a long way from ascension. Those who could ascend were all protected by spiritual aura, and inhuman creatures would have a hard time doing anything to them. Besides, what monster or demon would want to mess with a future heavenly official? Whether a person could ascend didn't depend on how smart they were. Intelligence and effort might not matter at all. And exploiting rare treasures and devices certainly wouldn't increase chances. Sometimes it's just like that. 10 years of study couldn't compare to the natural wit and talent. 100 years of bloody struggles couldn't compare to a moment's enlightenment. If it wasn't written in fate, then it wasn't. The Watermaster could spend all he wanted on his younger brother, but without that fate, the Windmaster would very well be stuck in middle court and become nothing more than the leading lamb of junior officials. That he was able to make it to where he was today, to shine with endless glory, was all because his older brother robbed something that belonged to another and gave it to him. If he even had a shred of conscience, it wasn't hard to imagine how it must feel after learning the truth. If the exchange had never happened, then the one who possessed the real potential to ascend, how glorious would he have been today? Having thought this, a light suddenly went off in Shelian's mind. No, Lord Windmaster, the one who called you out wasn't the Reverend of Empty Words. The Windmaster raised his bowed head. Huh? That voice definitely belonged to it. I wouldn't have mistaken that. No. It was its voice. But that doesn't mean the body still belonged to it. Everyone, do you remember? The prey the Reverend of Empty Words set its eyes on all died by way of suicide, except for one person. After a pause, he continued, How did Scholar Ha die? How was it portrayed at the Bloody Fire Social? Was it suicide? It wasn't suicide. It was exhaustion. That's right. Even though he was hounded by misfortune to the end, never once did Scholar Ha think of killing himself. Think about it. This man had abnormally strong determination, having been struck by so many unfair, unjust encounters. If this was a typical person, he would have long since given up or ended everything. Yet he always fought back. He never backed down over anything. I think that, perhaps, once the Reverend of Empty Words found him, it never managed to suck what it wanted. Fear. The cause of his death wasn't suicide because of fear and despair. After the Reverend of Empty Words clung to him, it didn't eat good fruit, but a steel plate instead. It broke its teeth, losing thoroughly in the end. I really am nothing compared to this man. Shelian continued, He died with murderous intent and resentment. I don't think a battered soul like that would rest in peace. If not at peace, it would thirst for revenge. So, Lord Windmaster, I believe the current Reverend of Empty Words couldn't possibly be the same that sought you when you were born. Instead, it was Scholar Ha who stubbornly fought back to the end and bit back at the Reverend, or rather, Heshan. The Windmaster and Ming Yi were stunned by this claim, and Hua Cheng added quietly, Ghosts devouring ghosts. When humans eat humans, at most, the stomach gets stuffed. When ghosts devour ghosts with the correct method, they can absorb the powers and abilities and use them as their own. That's why. Okay, it's all coming together. Yes. That can also explain why the Reverend of Empty Words knew so many details of this whole affair. A monster like it is dull and eccentric. It shouldn't be so intelligent. However, the one that's now returned to pursue you he wanted to use hybrid, but that didn't feel accurate. Just then, Hua Cheng supplied, enhanced entity. Right! This detective work between them. After Scholar Ha swallowed up the Reverend of Empty Words, his mind was in complete control. The him now not only possesses the ability to curse, he's also very clever, and it possessed the bottomless resentment towards the two of you. So, even though it already knew the Windmaster's verbal password, it didn't cast a death curse through the private spiritual communication array at the start. Instead, it tightened the snare gradually, forcing the Windmaster to plug his own ears, shut his own eyes, lock himself in an empty room. Like a cat that caught a mouse, it wouldn't kill immediately and would play and play until the mouse itself killed itself from terror. A moment later, Ming Yi said, Now that it's come to this, what do you plan to do? Everyone looked at the Windmaster. Shi Qingshang had already messed up his own hair from all the unconscious scratching. He responded bemusedly, Well, don't look at me. I don't know what to do either. I don't know how to look at my brother now. It was his blood brother after all, and this heinous crime, harming the life of another, was committed for his sake. So it was understandable that he didn't know what to do for the moment. The Windmaster added, But I gotta beg everyone here to absolutely keep this a secret, just for now. Just give me a little time to think, just what to do. Even though I've been thinking for days now, I never had a thought anyway. I just need to calm down and reflect. Towards the end, he was rambling and his eyes were unfocused. Shi Wudu kept saying he was going to treat Qingshang's illness, but what illness was there to treat? Unless it was his fall from divine grace, his change back into a mortal. His illness could only be cured if his fate was changed again and he ascended once more. Although it would be difficult to find another qualifying candidate, who knew what other evil spell Shi Wudu would come up with? No wonder the Windmaster was whining and becoming immortal and abandoning his godhood, desperate to flee. As for that scroll about the Reverend of Empty Words that was filled with errors, no doubt it was made to mislead the Windmaster, making sure he didn't discover the truth. Who knows if it was put together by Shi Wudu or Ling Wen, but at the beginning, when Shi Wudu needed to find a qualifying candidate, he must have needed the help of the palace of Ling Wen. Did Ling Wen herself really know of nothing of this? If there was a heavenly official like the Windmaster who ascended this way, would it be possible that there was a second, a third, or even more other heavenly officials who ascended the same way? Oh! If that was the case, then it'd be horrifying. The world would be turned upside down. This must be treated with the utmost gravity. Other than Hua Cheng, who wasn't involved and was at ease, enjoying himself, everyone else at the cottage was all gloom and doom, as if a great enemy was about to descend upon them. Just then, there was a commotion outside the cottage. There were oxen mooing furiously, and even more farmers shouting, "Stop, stop! What are you planning, so full of killing intent?" Oh, shit! No! Shilian moved to the door and peeked through the crack. It's General Pei! Oh my god, he found them! Pei Ming. He is, if anything, persistent. Oh my god. Pei Ming had only just beaten down Chang Jishin fighting in a brawl, yet he appeared perfectly fine standing outside. Before him, he was leaning on a stone slab marking the boundary, and he seemed rather wary of it, afraid to enter rashly, so he remained standing there with a sword in hand. The farmers gripped their pickaxes and sickles, their faces written with unwelcoming expressions. That black ox in the paddy blew out a few heavy breaths from its nostrils, like, and suddenly stood on its hind legs. Oh, an instant later becoming a large, buff man, rather handsome, with a small steel nose ring. He laughed. Well, I'll be, ain't this General Pei? What a rare guest. What winds blew my lord over today? Let me say this first. We've got nothing to do with your little Pei. Oh, no. Okay, good. We're not done yet. Shilian knew it. Earlier when he saw the black ox in the paddies, he recalled a faint impression. Sure enough, this place was Mount Yulong, the Rainmaster country. Back then, it was also this Ox Yong who lent the Rainmaster hat for Shilian to create rain. The years had gone by, yet it was oppressive as always, and still plowed the fields with honest strength. The Windmaster squeezed over to the crack of the door, speaking to Shilian. That ox from the Rainmaster's household. He's a good guy. Pei Ming had once suffered a loss at the hands of the Rainmaster, so naturally he was courteous and polite at the moment. Please, no need to flatter me. Pei didn't come to seek the ruler of Yushi. May I inquire if Lord Windmaster has come by your esteemed country? Ah! No! Yushi means Rainmaster. The Rainmaster is the ruler of the Kingdom of Yushi, which just means the Kingdom of the Rainmaster. I can't tell if MXTX got lazy with this name. Plus, I love the Rainmaster. Ah! Oh my god! Oh, y'all. Yes, so... Ah! My poor Kuda's about to fall over. Oh my gosh! The tease and the cliffhanger! We meet again! I am fully convinced at this point that every chapter set that I read for the entirety of this volume is not only going to end in a cliffhanger, it is, but is also going to be the biggest tease to this jazz right here, to this Shilian and Hua Cheng confrontation. It's not even a confrontation. They're them together like that. It's getting closer and closer, and you can almost taste it, but you're just like, we're not there yet, because Shilian, bless his sweet, innocent virgin bones. Bless his sweet cinnamon bun deity virgin bones. I had to restart the camera and move Whiteboard Kun a little bit back so it wasn't falling on me. But man, yeah, I have resigned myself to the fact that every week, until we finish this volume, every week's just going to be a cliffhanger. Every week is going to have some form of teasing in that Hua Cheng is he's just prodding the beast. He is just prodding along, being like, come on, Gege. We're so close. He's waited 800 years for you to get it. And the thing about it is, Shilian is getting it. The last several weeks, there has been at least one, it reminds me of Onazushi, there's been at least one paragraph where Shilian stops and goes, man, Hua Cheng's really hot. It's like a full-on, there was a paragraph in this set of chapters that the moment Shilian, it was when he came out and saw, Hua Cheng shirtless, we'll talk about that, where he was just like, oh yeah, and the moment he starts detailing, you're like, okay, Shilian, you gotta go on a rant for a little bit, you gotta articulate every sweet angle of his abs for us, the audience, and let us know how good looking he is. and before we go back to the plot, Shilian is aware that Hua Cheng is good looking, and he's attracted to, not just that, but he's attracted to him. Because throughout the story, Shilian has said other characters were good looking. He was like, oh, Pei Ming's a very, handsome person. The Windmaster is a very beautiful individual. But with Hua Cheng, it's different. With Hua Cheng, it's so fascinating to see a writer when they write attraction. Because it's not just the idea that somebody is good looking, it's that they feel a certain way about them, and it takes it to another level. And Shilian has not fully come to the realization, or if they haven't wanted to admit it, that there's something else about Hua Cheng that Shilian is feeling that they're not feeling for anyone else. And it's just Hua Cheng. They don't spend paragraphs talking about, how great Ming Yi is. It's all Hua Cheng. And there's little gestures like Shilian being like, oh, I want to thank him. I want to do something for him. And Hua Cheng's like, please. And Shilian doesn't, because he's so innocent, he doesn't, and he's never contemplated the idea of even doing anything remotely romantic or sensual or sexual. So for Shilian to be like, I want to do something for him, but I don't know what. And so for him, just the little act of fixing his collar is so intimate in that moment that it's just like, to the point where the Windmaster and Ming Yi are like, we gotta go. This is too much for us. Y'all need to get a room, get a shrine, and stay there for a weekend, right? But it's just like Shilian is building up towards it, right? And all of these chapters are building up towards something initiating. That's what I want to get at. Something is going to initiate in this volume, and it's been building and building and building over the course of these last 3 volumes. The feelings and the history has been building with Shilian and Hua Cheng, where it's gonna get somewhere. Now, is it gonna be a full-on makeout session like this cover? I don't know, but I don't know if it'll get to that, or if it's just gonna be like a kiss, and that's gonna be it. But a kiss would be huge to Shilian. A kiss would be insanely huge. Like, Shilian's never kissed anyone, right? That would be, at least not on purpose. That would be insanely intense. And so for Shilian, that would be like the big, oh my God, my first kiss. But, he has kissed, but it was like a do or die situation. He has kissed Hua Cheng, but it was in the moment. It wasn't like an intimate, romantic, we're under the stars kissing. It was like, oh, this fetus spirit is about to kill me. Hua Cheng's giving me oxygen to live, sort of thing. So still a kiss, but it wasn't like under the most romantic of circumstances, right? It wasn't where it was mutual, but it wasn't like we didn't stare longingly into each other's eyes and they leaned over and kissed me. It wasn't like that. It was a very in the moment, needed to happen thing. So for Shilian, it would be huge to initiate that kind of romance, especially for a character that has sworn that off completely, being like, I can drink, I can do anything, but no sex. And Hua Cheng's like, for now. Right? I'm really excited because I keep seeing, what I love about this is that it is a slow burn and a slow build, but you can see the build. It's present, and it's not something that just comes out of nowhere. It's been building this whole time. Whereas with stories like Modao Zushi, I feel like it was always there. It was just Wei Wuxian and Lan Wangji were on different planes. They were constantly they were both like ready to go, but just not at the right level or understanding of each other. Here, Hua Cheng has been down for a long time. He has got some serious patience. He has been down to go for a while. But kudos to him for being so patient. And there's a part in this chapter set I want to talk about because it was something I brought up last week that I was a little worried about. And this week it was remedied. And I was like, oh no, never mind. No worries. We're good. And we'll get to it. But it was so tempting for me. I sat there for about 3 minutes after I clicked that stop on that first recording, y'all. I sat there for about 3 minutes. I found the picture that I'm going to show y'all. It's cute for this week. I found the picture, but then I sat there and was like, do I want to read ahead? Do I want to just tackle chapters 18 and 19 today? And I said no, because it was 40 more pages. And I was like, I don't want to do it. I don't want to commit to 40 more pages. I was like, no. But I was really close because the urge to binge, y'all, is real desperate. So I'm going to wait and get feedback on parts 33 and 34 before I start reading the next 2 chapters, at least, to get some feedback on those, because I don't want to get too far ahead and maybe miss out on something that's really cool to talk about. But yeah, it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard. If this volume keeps doing like it's doing and does teaser and cliffhangers, it's going to be hard for me not to read ahead and record ahead, because it's taken all I got, y'all. It's taken the most patience I can muster, because man, these set of chapters were amazing. I was so, now granted, I am amped up on sugar. I had cake for breakfast this morning and coffee, so I am like on a sugar high. I'm going to crash real hard later, but this was just like, it was like such a rush. And what I loved about these set of chapters is we finally get some damn answers. I've been like speculating and wondering, I'm like, how long we're going to wait until we find out about this this Reverend of Empty Words. And we get some interesting feedback that is rather interesting, right? Some interesting lore dropped, some things, the Watermaster and Ling Wen and Pei Ming and all of this. Oh, I was like, Whiteboard Coon has to come out, because we need to document and outline some things. It needs to be on the board. We need to talk about it. There's actually surprisingly a lot going on in these 2 chapters. I was worried with them being so short. I was like, oh, we're not going to get a whole lot in these 2 chapters. No, we get quite a lot, quite a lot in these 2 chapters, because we finally slow down a little bit and we get some exposition, get some answers. And I'm like, thank you, MXTX. I've been waiting for this. I'm glad I trusted you and waited on you. But God, these chapters. I'm going to find that picture and talk a little bit about this, because Pei Ming. I like that when I started this story, I was really against Pei Ming. Pei Ming was on my shit list. I was like, I don't like you at all. And I'm not going to say that I'm like, oh, Pei Ming's my favorite character. No, but he's becoming more endearing, because it seems like he's become MXTX's pincushion. MXTX is just like, well, you know, he sticks his sword in a lot of places, so it only seems fair for it to come back on him. God, there's a lot of dick jokes I can use with him, and I'm going to try to refrain and keep it classy, but I guarantee nothing, because there's a lot of innuendos we can do with Pei Ming, and he kind of asks for it, so that's the thing. He's one of those people that, like, he can't take being prodded at very well at all, so it kind of makes it in like a Mean Girl way kind of fun, that you kind of want to see what he'll do when people like get at him. And so it's just he's got one of those personalities you can't help, but he is becoming more endearing. Now, in terms of him becoming more endearing, I'm like, cool, good for you, Pei Ming. We'll talk about him in this set. Ling Wen and Shi Wudu. Shi Wudu has been going on a teeter-totter / roller coaster with me. His character I go in and out with, and I'm like, dude, it's like a wave. It's like wave upon wave, which is fitting. He's the Watermaster, but I'm just like, dude, what we doing? Because he does some things that we find out in this set that I'm like, do you consider the consequences of what has happened now and what that means, and possibly what it is referring to or referencing? There's a lot going on that I'm like, oh, this is going to open up a big can of worms. And it's like the road to hell is paved with good intentions. That is exactly the phrase. Like the moment we start getting into the origin of the Reverend Empty Words, I'm like, oh my God, these supposed good deeds, no good deed goes unpunished. You've created a monster, and that's a problem. And Ling Wen's not totally innocent in all of this. And Pei Ming isn't, but Pei Ming, talk about Pei Ming. I can't believe I'm giving him a little bit of the benefit of the doubt in some regards, but we'll talk about it. I'm like, oh, Pei Ming. Everybody in the Discord is going to be like, hey, Romania is regretting her decisions on Pei Ming. And I'll be like, hey, I'm still keeping some of them. just reevaluating, right? Oh my God, this set of chapters was a lot of fun, and there's a lot to talk about. So we start off right off the bat. I like that there are 2 people involved. It's not only the person attacking them from above, which turns out to be Pei Ming. I was like totally writing off Pei Ming as being the one for it, so I'm glad I was proven wrong. But then we not only get Pei Ming, but we also get Chi. I'm glad we get him back in this, and getting to see a picture of him, which I'll show you all the image in a minute. Not at all what I expected. Not at all. I was expecting a character that looked a lot different. And no, that is not the case. So I like that the very first thing we get in this chapter is Shilian saying that despite the fact he's told people for years and centuries that he's impotent, he really does not want to lose his dick right now. He's like, even though I've told people that I can't get it up, I don't want it to be an impossibility. So Shilian's like, I would like to keep my penis just in case. And that's the very first thing we start out the chapter with. I'm like, oh my God, MXTX, come on. And then them dodging the sword and everything. And so we establish a couple things. I'm going to put Pei Ming over here. We're gonna talk about Pei Ming for sure. He's going to be a big central thing in this because I feel like he's in this arc going to be rather important. We're getting back to the Rainmaster, and him and the Rainmaster have scuffles. I have theories, and we're going to go back to that. And then not only that, but we're going to get into some of the other heavenly officials too. So yeah, I like the fact that they established that Pei Ming has like really nice, new, sharp, treasured swords. So yeah, make note of that Pei Ming, his weapons are properly maintained. You know, Feng Shen's a very large sword, but, you know, he's not exactly the most useful in this situation. So Pei Ming is indeed proving that it's not the size, it's how you use it. I need to stop! Pei Ming, I need to stop! I need to stop. I need to stop. I need to stop. Okay, but yeah, so I warn you, this discussion is going to be ridiculous. As it should be. But yeah, so they're going in and out. I love the absolute chaos that the Earthmaster is trying their hardest to get out of the situation, to save their bestie, bestie Windmaster. Windmaster's losing their mind because they're like, they can't do anything. They have no spiritual power. They're just like, hurry up, Ming-Yi, help on Ming-Yong. And Shilian is in the back being like, I'm the only sane person here. For Shilian to be the only sane person is absolutely hysterical. And the fact that Shilian in the book acknowledges himself as such. He's like, as the only non-crazy person. Which, honestly, Shilian is the most tame in the story. So yeah. So I'm going to put Ming-Yi. Going to put Ming-Yi up here, right? We're going to put Windmaster. Going to put Windmaster up here, right? Gonna have them on here, and then find another a good marker for this one. I'm gonna put Shilian down here along with Hua Cheng. I'll put Hua Cheng in blue against my better judgment, and then we're gonna put the Watermaster, Shi Wudu, and Ling Wen over here. And I'll put the Rainmaster over here because we'll get to them too. So we have a full set of characters. And then we'll put also what was it? Oh God, Yijin. Yijin here. We're gonna put him here. All right. We got a whole host of characters in this set here. So yeah, I just love the idea that Ming-Yi is trying their hardest to protect the Windmaster, but they don't want to acknowledge it. They still have a little bit of tsundere in them, so they're like, just shut up and let me do my job. And it's really fun. And so they make the observation that they're like, well, it would be rather silly. They sense that above them it's silent, and they're like, okay, well, normally heavenly officials don't sleep throughout the day, so chances are that means that this place is empty, and we can just go there and get out real quick. Because they're like, our tunnels have been confiscated. They know that they're burrowing underground, so it's not safe anymore to burrow underground. We need to get out of there, get out of the heavenly realm with the Windmaster, make our escape. And so, who knows? Who knew that Yijin, is sleeping in the middle of the day? So they're a day sleeper, which is kind of fun. I like the idea that it sets up the fact that Yijin goes against the grain and isn't like the other heavenly officials. I feel like that one little detail that they sleep throughout the day means that it's just establishing from MXTX that Yijin is not like the other heavenly officials. He's cut from a different cloth, and he's going to act a little bit different and maybe out of the ordinary. I like that. Like, that one little detail gives us, the audience, a host of things to take away from it. And I think that's pretty cool because we've really not spent any time with him. All we know is that he didn't like the play the night of the autumn banquet. He didn't like the play. Something about it made him mad. And then again, going to the beat of his own drum, just left on his own accord and was like, peace out, and then left. So we've got like little tiny nuggets of things about him, but we don't know a whole lot with him as well. But the fact that it's Pei Ming that followed them is just amazing. And Pei Ming, they established that he's still courteous, right? He's courteous, but persistent. Yeah, which he's a professional. We'll give him that. But I'm actually kind of really impressed with Pei Ming a little bit that he acts rather, he's pursuing and like, he's like a gnat flying around you, like pursuing you, but a proper gnat. He wants to he does things very courteously, and he doesn't just grab the Windmaster and go. He does ask questions. He's like, hey, Windmaster, why are you out and about? Your Highness, Lord Earthmaster, do you have nothing better to do? Why are you here? Isn't this preposterous? Like, I will say this for Pei Ming. He could have just swept in, grabbed the Windmaster, and left, and then called the guards or something onto the Earthmaster and Shi Lian and made a big scene about it. But he tried to handle it himself, probably because he doesn't want the Watermaster and Ling Wen knowing about it and adding extra stress. So Pei Ming is trying to like diffuse the situation without getting the entire Heavenly Court involved, because he knows that that's going to look bad on the Watermaster and reveal all of this. So it might be that Pei Ming isn't being courteous because he wants to be, but he's being courteous and professional and polite because he realizes that's what he has to do to protect the others in this very, very delicate situation. So that's fascinating though. And I like that Shi Lian's like, we've got to go. He's like, and I like Shi Lian kind of defends the Windmaster, being like, hey, yeah, the Windmaster's not a child. They're hundreds of years old. They can make decisions for themselves. The Watermaster needs to consider that. So yeah, I've been saying that like back a few episode sets before, or chapter sets before, that I was like, that's always been my big stickler with the Watermaster, is that they're too overprotective. Now we know why. Now it makes sense. But at the time, I was like, well, the Watermaster's being really overprotective. And while that's really cool, like, your brother's not a kid. He's a full-blown adult. Like, you can treat him with a little bit more dignity and respect. And that's kind of what Shi Lian's getting at, being like, the Watermaster's the one holding him up against his will. Isn't that the more childish thing than to let your brother do what he needs to do? He wants to go back to the mortal realm. Let him go back to the mortal realm. He's a big kid. He can make decisions for himself. Now, we know why that is and why it's so delicate, because the Windmaster didn't really know what was going on. So now, by the end of this chapter set, it all makes sense why the Watermaster's doing what they're doing, but I don't think that makes it better. We'll talk about that. But yeah, oh my God. So yeah, and then Pei Ming's like, I like that Pei Ming asks Yijin to stop what he's doing and help him. The sheer audacity of Pei Ming is really interesting, because this is the same guy that was like trash talked him and wanted Pei Jr. to take his place and take over his territory. Like, he basically was grooming his descendant to kick this guy out. And in this moment, he's like, hey, I know that I don't respect you at all and want my descendant to take your place and don't really respect the work that you've done to get to this position. But we've got to, for the sake of the heavenly realm, apprehend the Windmaster. So if you could help out. And I love that Qi Ying is like, no. Like, no. Like the Windmaster says, you're being fake. No. I love that, again, he goes to his own beat. Like, he, in that moment, probably heard what Shi Lian was saying and was like, I like what he's saying. No, I don't like you, Pei Ming. Bye. And again, MXTX is using Pei Ming like a big pincushion. And the only picture we get from this is absolutely hilarious. But yeah, it is of old Qi Ying, like with his bed head, throwing a bed at Pei Ming, His expression is absolutely priceless. And I wish you all could see, it'll be on the thumbnail, but I wish you all could see Shi Lian's like, and then you have the Windmaster and Ming Yi's like, right, sure. But yeah, I did not expect Qi Ying to look like this. I was expecting a much older character that was much taller and more slender, I guess, based because of how the others in this series look. But no, he looks really young. He's kind of short. He's like our short king and has this like unruly bedhead of curly hair. Like, I did not imagine that at all. And he's frightfully strong because he throws a damn bed at Pei Ming. Also, if we're talking about sexual innuendos, the idea that someone throws the bed at Pei Ming, he should be used to it. He should be used to hitting the bed, right? Hitting the sheets. Yep, I'm going to stop. So yeah, I really love that picture. But yeah, so he uses it basically to distract Pei Ming to let them escape. And even as Shi Lian thanks him, he doesn't even recognize it. He's just like, he's too busy bashing Pei Ming to hear Shi Lian's like words of thanks, right? So probably one of the best, like I could just picture this animated and I want it so badly, but just the idea that Pei Ming's like, guard, stop them! And Shi Lian rolls the dice and they just hurry up, and on the other side of the door, could have taken him anywhere, on the other side of the door, like just waiting for them to come back, is Hua Cheng with his leg propped up, shirtless from the waist up, sitting there using Ming as a woodcutter whittling on making him a new donation box. Because Shi Lian took the donation box with all the gold bars from Shi Wudu to the Heavenly Realm, so he didn't have a donation box anymore. And so Hua Cheng is making him a new one. So I love the idea that Hua Cheng, he's sitting there making a new donation box, using a Ming. Just he was waiting for his return. And you just know that Hua Cheng's like that. I love that faith that Hua Cheng has, because he's like, I know Shi Lian's gonna come back to me. I know it. And so when he does, I'm going to look damn sexy. I'm going to be sitting there whittling, like carving up, like just doing the most domestic work possible in my shirtless, beautiful upper body. So when Shi Lian comes in, I'm just going to dazzle him. And they use the phrase like his eyes were popping out of their sockets and the blood rushing to his head, making his eyes go dark. Like Shi Lian's just starstruck. And the Windmaster and Ming Yi are like they both give like the side eye to each other, like, so you see this happening? Yeah, you see this happening? Like at this point, the two of them know. How could you not? Right? But I cannot tell you all in words how amazing this entire page of text is. It's the book, the version I have, it's page 902 overall, which we're nearly to 1,000 pages in this story, which is insanity. But the page that it's on in the the page that's on in the English version is on page 122 in the English translation of volume 4. And I cannot express into words the mental image and how hilarious it is to me that Shi Lian steps outside of the door. Behind him is the Windmaster and the Earthmaster. They're being pursued by Pei Ming. They walk in on a shirtless Hua Cheng carving a new donation box with like wiping the sweat from his brow, looking absolutely drop dead gorgeous. And then outside there is Qi Rong screaming, Goosey, come give daddy's legs a little massage chop. That is the funniest damn thing I've heard of all month. And I just, because you can picture it in your head and it's so damn hilarious. That Qi Rong has accepted Goosey as his child. What is happening? Oh my god. And then Hua Cheng tosses Ming aside and like walks towards Shi Lian with this svelte body and his brows raised slightly like, what did you expect you'd come back home to? I'm just like, it's just the idea. It feels like the Addams Family where Qi Rong is like Uncle Fester, like out in the backyard with Goosey and Yiling are like Pugsley and Wednesday. Shi Lian and Hua Cheng are like Gomez and Morticia. That's what it's like. And it's the most bizarre family ever. They formed this weird ass little family. And I did not expect this coming at all when I started this series, and it's absolutely amazing. But yeah, so then Shilian goes into a big paragraph-long discussion about how turned on he is by Hua Cheng, but he doesn't know that he's turned on. He doesn't know what these feelings are. He's like, what is this feeling? So sudden and new. Like, he just doesn't know. And then he asks the Windmaster and Earthmaster to shield their eyes and not to look. And then both, I love the faces of the other two stiffened as they watch them with an odd look. Like, they both are just looking at him, like, again, side-eyeing, being like, oh, okay, so this is how it is at their household. And Hua Cheng's just being like, why are you so nervous? Yeah, and Shi Lian is like, why is he nervous? Hua Cheng's not a lady, so what if he's laboring half naked? Well, just put on some clothes. Again, Shi Lian I like that Shi Lian is questioning, why is this affecting him, right? So he is questioning. He's questioning and slowly considering his sexuality. Yeah, he's slowly considering. I think it's something Shi Lian's never thought about before. And in this moment, he's like, I don't know why I'm thinking these things, but I am, right? And that, oh my God, that Hua Cheng, he's in the husbando bracket right now. How he can be so calmly being like, as Gege wishes, and then slowly takes his time to put on the shirt. I'm like, you stop with this reverse striptease. And then the Windmaster is all of us. The Windmaster's like, hey, you guys, I know you guys pretty much are, because he says what? Sorry for the intrusion. Like, sorry I'm interrupting your moments together, but I didn't think you guys are pretty much, anyway. Like, I just love how it's written, because it's just like, you can picture the Windmaster being like, like panic, right? And then Shi Lian tries to say, hey, if you've got something to say, if there's some misunderstanding I can explain, don't ha, just say it out loud. But we don't have time for that, right? We don't have time to go into the shipping and all of that, because Pei Ming is chasing after them. And they're very wise to think that Pei Ming has been to Puchi Shrine many a time before. They need to get out of there, right? So where do we go to? And Ming Yi seems to know exactly where to go, because we have established that the Rainmaster had a scuffle involving Pei Su, right? I'm pretty sure that was it, involving Pei Su in the past. Or not Pei Su, it was the other, involving the other relative in the past. So another descendant of Pei Ming had the run-in with the Rainmaster in the past, and that's why Pei Ming is so fearful of him, because he wants him to have nothing to do with him, right? But it's not Pei Jr., although the Rainmaster brings it up. Like, we know that Banyu is with the Rainmaster. Somewhere. Banyu is hiding out somewhere, so that's exciting. We can see little Banyu again, maybe. And so I'm sure that Banyu has told the Rainmaster about Pei Jr. I'm sure. Has she confessed her love to him? No, probably not. But I will still ship Pei Jr. and Banyu forever. But I love the fact that more than likely Banyu has told the Rainmaster about Pei Su. And he's like, oh, really? Another one of Pei Ming's descendants. And so isn't afraid to use that against Pei Ming. I love it. It's like that most southern passive aggressiveness. Like, oh, really? I could just see it, right? So yeah. So they decide that is the best place to go, because Pei Ming would probably not go there. Except, I want to make note, Pei Ming, he swallows his insecurities and he goes to the Rainmaster because I feel of that friendship with Shi Wudu. Bros before hoes. Like, he's just like, yeah, I'm willing to go to a place that I don't want to go to, because what's at stake is affecting my best bro, Shi Wudu. And I'm like, man, that gives me a little bit more admiration for Pei Ming too, because I'm like, he's risking something very personal to him to go on behalf of somebody else. So I'm like, that's cool. I appreciate that. I like it. But that's where they decided to go to. And Shi Lian, he's obviously going to go with the Wind Master and Earth Master to go take care of things. Shi Lian doesn't realize where they're going to at first. Ming Yi seems to understand where the best place is, but he goes back and says to Hua Cheng, I'm sorry about this so long. And Hua Cheng's dressed himself, and he's like, I knew you wouldn't come back and just stand and watch. So yeah, Hua Cheng knew from the moment he left him in the last chapter said, he's like, I know he's going to go off and do something, because that's just how Shi Lian works. But what I really, really like about Hua Cheng's character in this is that he's like, why should Gege apologize to me? Do you remember what I said a few days ago? But did you forget something else I told you? He's like, you remember? He's like, he recognizes that he understands that Shi Lian has short-term memory. He has short-term memory. He remembers stuff really soon, but he forgets some things from long ago, right? And that's almost like an inherent trauma reaction, right? And so Shi Lian has to think about it. And then he remembers what Hua Cheng said way back in Volume 2, back when they were facing Qi Rong. He says to him to keep doing what you want to do. That's the thing. And in the last chapter set, I was starting to get onto Hua Cheng just a little bit, because Hua Cheng in the last chapter set made it sound like he was saying, oh, you can't be next to the Wind Master and Earth Master. I'm going to be really mad if you hang out with them anymore. You don't need to be around them. But with that, it comes out that, no, that's not what he was saying. Hua Cheng was saying, I don't think you should be around them because I think it's going to put you in danger. If it were me, I'd stay far away from them because that seems like it's spelling trouble. But at the end of the day, I can only tell you what I would do, but I'm not going to hold you back or restrict you or control you. You keep doing what you want to do, and I'll support you even if it's not something I totally approve of. And that completely changes my thoughts about him from the last chapter. I'm like, okay, good. That's getting back to that Hua Cheng, like being the most sincere and supportive, right? Even if he doesn't agree. Again, that makes me think that this whole plot here, whenever we get to it, if we get to it, is going to be something that Shi Lian has to sign off on. Because Hua Cheng, what I love about him as a character, in any other yaoi or any other BL, I could so see a character like Hua Cheng being like a character that would invoke some of those kind of dated and not good tropes of BL, like non-consent, things like that. I could see Hua Cheng being one of those characters, but he's not. Instead, MXX writes him to where he's like, no, Shi Lian's going to be the one to decide when we do things. Now, granted, the kiss was initiated by Hua Cheng in that first time back in Volume 3, but again, it was a totally life and death situation, and Shi Lian leaned in. Shi Lian leaned into it. He didn't turn away and be like, oh, gross. No, he totally leaned in that moment. So I do think that Hua Cheng is going to let Shi Lian make the move. Now, whether or not he corners him before he makes that move, he might corner him up against the wall or against this table and be like, you do this, Gege. You either push me away or you lean in. But it's going to be Shi Lian's choice to lean in. At least that's my hope. But I felt a lot better about Hua Cheng after this chapter set, being like, he's totally down for Shi Lian making the decisions he wants. He's not trying to control him. And I like that. I think that in a lesser story, that whole, you have to stay away from them or I'm going to... Hua Cheng does get jealous. Don't get me wrong. He is a jealous man. For sure. We've seen him be jealous. But what I like about it is he's jealous, and jealousy is a very human emotion, which is ironic because he's a supreme ghost. But he is jealous, but he doesn't project that jealousy into control, right? And a lot of characters in BL try to control their partners by being like, you can't see this person, you can't talk to them, and I don't want to see you kissing anybody else but me. And Hua Cheng never says that to Shi Lian. He just tells him his opinion. He's like, I don't think you should be around these people because they're dangerous. But again, he knew Shi Lian was going to go off. Hua Cheng's a supreme ghost. He could have stopped Shi Lian. If he really didn't want Shi Lian to go to the Wind Master, to go to the Heavenly Realm, Hua Cheng could have put up a fight and kept Shi Lian there. He could have. But you know that he knew Shi Lian was going to leave, but he's like, I want you to make the choices that you want to make, and I'll just deal with them. As long as I can be near you, that's fine. The only thing he got mad at was when Shilian was going to body swap, because to Hua Cheng, that meant it was putting Shilian in a position he wasn't sure he could help him with. And it was his insecurities and being like, oh, I don't want you to be out of my sight because I want to keep you protected in this tense situation. That was the only thing. But yeah, I feel a lot better about his character now that we've got more from this conversation, right? And so, and I like that Shilian in this moment, he's like, he blinks not knowing what to say. He's like, and in that moment, he's kind of like, he wants to do something for Hua Cheng, because here's the deal. Shilian, he is used to people trying to restrict him. He's used to people trying to restrict him, whether it's Junwoo, whether it's Feng Shen and Mu Qing, whether it's his parents, whether it's the people around him, whether it's the Goshi. He's been used to all his life, like especially in his early years, of people telling him and trying to restrict what he does. And the only reason they haven't been able to is, for reasons. But here, he's like, this one person is telling me to do what I want to do and isn't trying to hold me back. And Shilian kind of gets filled with this emotion, like, oh, I want to do something for him. And he's like, I don't know what to do. And in my mind, I'm like, give a little kiss on the cheek. But we are far from that. That a kiss on the cheek for Shilian, you might as well just do a marriage proposal, because it's like, well, no. So he's like, I want to do something for him, but there's just no time, and I don't know what to do. And then he notices the collar on his robes isn't straight, and so he rushes up and like fixes the collar and turns it out and puts it where and fixes it and inspects him before smiling. There. Like that little gesture, that little thing where he wanted Hua Cheng to look as good as he could. He's like, there you go, you're good. And Hua Cheng being like, thank you. Like, what? And Hua Cheng's happy with that. He's like, because he knows that Shilian's done like a little gesture for him. And for Hua Cheng, it's like his deity has come and like fixed his robes for him. Like, just imagining the contrast of Hua Cheng in front of that temple as a kid, screaming for Shilian to talk to him and begging for his voice to be heard. And then Shilian calling back to him and Hua Cheng having stars in his eyes. You compare that moment to now, where they're both on equal terms and Shilian's just prepping his collar, being like, okay, you're good. And he's like, thank you. Like, that's such a difference, right? It's such a difference. And it's so beautiful because it's showing like this imbalance and them slowly coming to meet in the middle. It's like, it's beautiful, MXTX. I freaking love it. And Shilian says inside as he thinks to himself, I'm the one who should be thanking you. And so then I'm glad that Hua Cheng goes with them. I'm really glad. I really thought for a moment that Hua Cheng was I thought that Shilian was going to leave with the Wind Master and Earth Master, and Hua Cheng was going to get left behind. I really thought that was the case. That Shilian was going to be like, oh, you stay back. Don't come with us. We got this. I'm glad Hua Cheng is there for a lot of reasons. One, because it's furthering his bond with Shilian, which needs to happen. But also, it allows Hua Cheng to kind of defend himself and to have a stake in all of this, which we'll talk about with these next several pages. It's important that he's there. It's really important that he's there, especially when it comes to Ming Yi and the Wind Master. But yeah, so they go to this beautiful, as soon as they said the farming fields, I was like, oh, it's the Rain Master, because it's literally the only farming fields we've really established in this book that have importance. And yeah, the bamboo groves, and the moment they said a buff ox plowing, I'm like, that must be the Rain Master. And it was the Rain Master back then, right? So Shilian's been talking to him the whole time. He just didn't realize it, right? And so Shilian's like, what if General Pei chases us? And Hua Cheng focuses specifically on the black ox. Like, he knew instantly that was the Rain Master, being like, oh, he's not going to mess with the master of this land. There's no benefit to it. Even the water tyrant won't be able to do anything rash. Like, the fact that the Rain Master has such a power over the other heavenly officials when he's just, he's not even trying, is really, really interesting. And so Shilian's like, well, maybe it's best if you don't hang around because, this whole mess, it probably implicates too much of the Heavenly Court, and it may be best if you leave. Like, Shilian doesn't want to involve Hua Cheng too much because he's afraid that if he gets too involved, again, Shilian is constantly worried that it's going to give fuel to the Heavenly Realm to go after Hua Cheng, being like, he's like, I don't want you to get involved. I don't want them to think that you're responsible because you're not. Man, again, a few chapters ago, I thought that Hua Cheng might be somewhat guilty in all this. If I'm being honest, I was really questioning the last couple chapters, being like, Hua Cheng just leaves conveniently, right? And it does plant a seed of doubt in you that you're like, man, he really left conveniently. Is he really involved or not? And it plants that seed of doubt where you're like, I'm just not sure. And what I'm so happy about is that, yeah, no, Hua Cheng needs to stick around to prove his innocence. That's really what it amounts to, because the moment he leaves, there's all these swirls of doubt from the heavenly realm and from outside sources that make you question whether Hua Cheng, and we know Hua Cheng is capable of being cruel, is capable of just not giving a shit and being like, I'm doing whatever I want to as long as it doesn't hurt Xilian. So, I mean, he chucked Ming Yi into the ground, you know? So it does plant those seeds of doubt. So I feel Hua Cheng needs to be there to cement his innocence, right? And Hua Cheng's like, you know, what goes on in the upper court has nothing to do with me. He's like, I'm just sightseeing. He's like, and then the Windmaster says, you should all stop hanging around. Like, leave me alone. I'm going to stay shut up here. Like, let's just end it here. And and for a moment I was like, is the Windmaster and Banyu just going to chill out here forever with the Rainmaster? And just, that's the end of it because nobody wants to go over and bother him. But Xilian's like, no, like, whether things end here is not up to you. It's up to the people that put you in this position. It's up to the Watermaster and the Reverend of Empty Words. Like this isn't just your deal anymore. Your brother's involved. The Reverend of Empty Words is involved. It's not just something that you can decide to end. Like, there's too many players involved in this. And so, yeah, I am so glad that they decided to finally confront the Reverend of Empty Words getting into the pavilion to take the Windmaster. Because I was like, if we don't ever mention that again, I'm going to be so mad. I'm like, if they just drop it and don't go until like another volume or two, I'm going to be mad. But that's not the case. So, okay, we have the whole thing with how did they get into the private communication array? Well, the Ming Yi kind of says, you know, it's sort of the Windmaster's fault for just talking amongst everyone. So, of course, they could get in, right? So, I want to go through this saying, you know, unless someone connected to the private communication array and the first thing that came out of their mouth was blackmail, the Windmaster would have no room to fight back or raise an alarm. He could only follow as instructed. So it was like a threat. Like, somebody got in the private communication array, made a threat, and they were like, okay, I've got to do this. And so it was like, I'm thinking it was blackmail against the Watermaster, because Xilian is thinking that the Windmaster was acting like Xilian, right? The Windmaster doesn't, at this point, the Windmaster doesn't care about themselves, only about their brother and their friends. So yeah, it's sort of interesting that the Windmaster has become such friends with Xilian. And at the start of this series, I thought that they and Xilian were polar opposites. But as the story goes on, it's like, no, the Windmaster is surprisingly a lot like Xilian. A lot like Xilian. In that they don't care if anything happens to them. They just don't want anything to happen to the people that they really care about. In this case, Shiwudu. So the blackmail would be extremely effective against the Windmaster. They'd be like, oh, I don't want anything bad to happen. So Xilian says, you know, that's why your reaction was so strong, you know, after generating such a sharp rejection against the upper court, that you'd rather descend to the mortal realm, become a vagabond, than stay in the heavens. And Ming Yi, I like Ming Yi, is like, what blackmail? What are we talking about? Ming Yi's like, I'm kind of in the dark about this. And so he says that the Windmaster was not a gullible fool. If he fell victim to someone and lost his powers, the reaction should have been a rage. Yeah, so it's the sort of situation like, if they had, you know, lost their powers, and through the Reverend Empty Words, they should have been mad at the Reverend. They should have wanted revenge. They should have been like gung-ho about getting back at them. But that wasn't the case. It was almost like the Windmaster knew that something wasn't right to begin with, and almost like they knew they shouldn't have had those powers to begin with. It was abnormal in the first place. And that is when we get into this big lore drop, right? So the idea is that ascension is tied to fate. That it is tied to fate. If you are destined to ascend, it's going to happen. It's just it may take a long time. It may be through bloody means. It may be through normal means, whatever. It may be through cultivation. It's just the laws of the universe have a method and they have a place, and that's just the way things are. It goes back to the entire, theme of the story, is that Shilian struggles. Shilian was like, why can't we have nice things? And Junwoo was like, that's just the way things work. And it's like, ugh. So the concept that someone would be trying to alter that is interesting, right? So the idea here that Shilian kind of realizes is like, if everybody wished to ascend but could use underhanded methods, then it's like the fabric of the universe would be completely undermined and would just, everything in the heavenly realm would be called into question and would be ripe for destruction. So it is like the worst case scenario. You don't want to shake that foundation, and something like this is foundation crushing, right? So he's like, ever since the Windmaster was born, the reverent empty words clung to him, and the only way to escape was to ascend. And he did. And so you know what? It calls back to the very first volume when we were all like, or the second volume at the beginning, where we're like, wow, this miraculous story of these two brothers that just happened to ascend within a few years. It's a miracle. It's amazing. We're finding out now it was all a sham. Like, it was all fabricated. The legend was fabricated, right? The idea is that Shi Wudu, through some kind of spell or using his power, he switched the fate of his brother and Scholar Ha. He completely flipped them so that his brother would ascend instead of Scholar Ha, which is a terrifying thing to reveal, that that's even possible, right? That that's even a thing that could happen, right? He says that ever since he was born, the Reverend clung to him, but yet he ascended. What a beautiful tale, what a coincidence. And Shilian, I like that Shilian's like, he never wanted to question it because, I mean, why? But if the Windmaster descended naturally, how could his powers have been sucked so dry? If it was so easy for a monster to turn a god into a human, how many heavenly officials would have already fallen victim by now? He's like, it was too easy for the powers to be taken. Too easy, unless the Windmaster was mortal in the first place. Unless when they ascended, it was all just a sham. Like, they did all this power. And it makes sense now because the Windmaster has had all of these treasures, and trinkets on them, plus the power of the prayers given to him. Like, it's all been an illusion. It's all been this setup to make him appear powerful. It's all been fabricated. And the Water Master just keeps shoving it on him, being like, yeah, get more power to you so you seem more powerful. But it also explains why during the Autumn Festival with the lanterns, I was sitting there being like, the Windmaster's so popular. Why aren't they stronger than some of these other heavenly officials? Because it's all fabricated. He couldn't be more powerful. He's just riding on the laurels that his brothers kind of gave him at this point. It's so fascinating. And so they talk about the use of rare treasures and devices to help the path of cultivation isn't out of line. To ascend by way of massacre and battle in times of power change within the mortal realm wasn't out of line either. So that's interesting. They're like, you know what? The rules of ascension are not favored towards one individual. It's like, yeah, a battle or massacre can cause ascension, even if it's bad. The use of rare treasures and devices, while it seems like kind of cheating, isn't out of line. But it says that, because it says that the fate of the world is thus: honor is accompanied by blood, and after ascension, all is wiped clean. It's like, yeah, you did all these crazy things, but once you've ascended, you start with a clean slate. So what can we do? But there are some things that are out of line. So you can't do any rituals of evil to harm the lives of others for the sake of having someone ascend. That's a completely different matter. So basically, you can cultivate for yourself, use rare devices for yourself, and that's fine because you're doing this all on your own for your own sake. And you're not hurting anybody else. You're just using these treasures to try to give yourself a leg up. The massacres and battle during times of power change, that line during times of power change make it seem like it was something that was going to happen that's been designated. So that kind of goes back to Long Ying. Long Ying had the king's aura, like he was destined to ascend. It just is a matter of time. And it's not something, it seems almost like the massacre and battle thing with Pei Jr. and Long Ying, to our knowledge, is something that's not planned by the individual. It's just something that accompanies them. So again, Long Ying's whole thing with the king's aura isn't something he wished upon himself. It just naturally happened. It was fate's ordaining. Pei Su, even though it's slightly fabricated, it's still something that was just caused. It wasn't Pei Su like initially creating that aura for himself, right? So those things are all things that just happen in the order of the universe, and there's nothing you can do about it. What Shi Wudu is doing is an evil ritual that is intentionally harming someone else to save someone else. It is intentional, it's premeditated, it is taking someone's life and swapping it for someone else's. And that's a big no-no. We don't do that. That's not something that we do. That's out of line. And so Shilian's like, the night you ascended, it was the eve of the last day of autumn, right? So we have the idea of the bloody ritual. The bloody ritual. And now it makes sense why they went to Fugu, why they went during that parade. It was the Reverend of Empty Words trying to kind of do like a Hua Cheng, right? The Reverend of Empty Words kind of did like a Hua Cheng. And, you know, Hua Cheng's been trying to give Shilian all of these clues to point to how his past is connected to the present. And the Reverend of Empty Words is kind of doing the exact same thing for the Windmaster, saying, here's your past, figure it out, here's how it's aligning to the present and how I want to get revenge on you. It's the same thing, only the Reverend of Empty Words is meaning a lot of harm, and Hua Cheng is meaning the opposite. So that's fascinating. But yeah, they established that the Scholar He, he was the one intended to ascend, not the Windmaster. The scholar was clever, he was powerful, he was intelligent, he had all the right things in place. He was born around the same time as the Windmaster. It's this idea that you had one person that was meant for greatness and one that was meant for ruin. And because his brother couldn't take the idea that his younger brother was meant for ruin, he intentionally swapped their places and took the luck from one and gave it to the other. And they've established that because Hua Cheng said you could take luck from other people and use it for yourself. So that's something that's been established in story, that you can take luck from someone and use it upon yourself or someone else. He's done that for Shi Lian. So it's something we established that's possible, and that's exactly what the Windmaster did. Except he didn't tell Scholar He. He just took it and gave it to the Windmaster without asking, and made it to where the Reverend of Empty Words was easily deceived and went after Scholar He instead, because Scholar He had the name of Sean. Oh my gosh. So yeah, so basically he got to where the Reverend of Empty Words was attached to He. And we've established originally that the Venerable of Empty Words are not intelligent creatures. They just go towards a target that they've designated to, and the stars aligned that it worked out in the Water Master's favor. So yeah, and the Scholar He had the birth name Sean. So like the stars just aligned for this to happen, right? And because it didn't recognize the face of the Windmaster, it didn't know the difference, right? It didn't know. It just knew. It knew what it needed to know. It knew that the name Sean was there, that it was born at this time and place, and that it was connected. That's all it needed to attach itself to the wrong person, to attach it to the scapegoat. And yeah, Shilian points out something really good. He's like, you know, Shi Wudu probably used everything he had to search for the right person to use as a scapegoat. And this just all happened to fall right into place. And Ming Yi figures out the exact same thing, that Wudu was like, this is my one chance. It's not going to come again. And I like that Hua Cheng this whole time has been like, isn't this fun? Because yeah, I like that the Windmaster looks towards Hua Cheng and he's like, don't look at me. He's like, the one you should worry about isn't me. I have nothing to do with all this. Why don't you concern yourself with whether anyone else in the upper court has gotten a hold of this weakness of your brothers? And that's when Ming Yi says, so you do have spies in the heavenly realm. And he's like, you already know that. I was like, that tension there. I was like, oh my God. Because yeah, that proves that Hua Cheng, he is aware that Jun Wu and others are prying into the spy. And not only that, but that the spy exists. That's the thing too. So we have confirmation, seemingly, that Ming Yi and Junwoo and him, and technically Shi Lian, are aware of the spy of Hua Cheng's. Aware of that. Yeah. And I like that Hua Cheng is just like, you guys can look at me all you want. He's like, I don't care about this. That's the thing. Hua Cheng is this supreme ghost. He's like the ghost king. He like is the one that could like wreck shit in the heavenly realm. He doesn't care. He's just sitting there like leaning back being like, isn't this funny? But he's also, I feel like, chuckling at the hypocrisy of it all. Being like, you all say that the ghost realm is bad, and yet your brother is like swapping people's lives and getting people killed and suffering fates worse than death just to save you. Isn't that funny? Isn't that fun? Isn't that a little bit hypocritical? Aren't you all supposed to be so heavenly and divine? You know, it's just like Hua Cheng's having the time of his life, watching everything fall apart, and he's like, I'm just here to, you know, hang out with Gege. And it's established the Lord Earthmaster was sent to the Ghost City to investigate, but the spy was planted deeply, and after over the decade, they still weren't found out. And Shi Lian, I like that Shi Lian naturally still believes Hua Cheng and doesn't think anything more about it. But then he thinks back to, you know, why did you open the doors? Did someone call out? And then he thinks about the Reverend of Empty Words. So he learned the verbal password. And Ming Yi kind of gets mad at the Windmaster because Shi Lian's like, well, how did they know your verbal password? And Ming Yi's like, well, it's because this guy moves, makes friends with everybody and talks to everybody without thinking about it. He talks too much. Ming Yi's like, he's too popular, and he gave his password out to anyone and everyone, not thinking the wrong person could get a hold of it. And he gets kind of mad at him about it. And then the Windmaster's like, oh, you can't say it like that. The ones who call on me are from the upper court. I'd never give personal info out to a creature. But the thing about it is that somebody's leaked the password. Whether it was intentional or not should still be investigated. So yeah, so there is, it's possible that, yeah, someone in the Heavenly Court is being malicious and has leaked the password to hurt the Windmaster, which is a big problem. Or it could be that it just unintentionally happened. And it was nobody's fault. It just fell into the wrong hands at the wrong time. I mean, either way, it's a bad deal. And, of course, the Windmaster's like, I couldn't see what it looked like. It cast a spell. And then Ming Yi's just like, Ming Yi's so frustrated because Ming Yi wants to help the Windmaster. He wants to help and is frustrated by the lack of info that is available to them. They're hitting a brick wall where they can't do anything else, and Ming Yi's like, this is frustrating, right? So this part is so insane. The idea of ghosts eating ghosts. That opens up a whole can of worms right there. That concept opens up a giant can of worms that is actually terrifying and opens up so many theories, right? So the idea that the Reverend of Empty Words, it was still a long way from ascension. Those who could ascend were all protected by spiritual aura, and inhuman creatures would have a hard time doing anything to them. What monster or demon would want to mess with a future heavenly official? But Shi Lian is thinking, you know, the Water Master could do all they wanted to for his younger brother, but without fate, the Windmaster may very well become nothing more than the leading lamb of junior officials. So yeah, Shi Lian's like, there's a possibility that the Windmaster was never going to ascend or ever get to that point. And there was just nothing that could be done about it. And the Water Master just didn't want to accept that and wanted to raise his brother up to be more than that. So I like that Shi Lian's like, wait, the Lord Windmaster, the one who called you out, it wasn't the Reverend of Empty Words. It was Scholar Hua who basically consumed the Reverend of Empty Words and became it. So yeah, because he wasn't committing suicide. He died of exhaustion. So yeah, he's like, and of course the Windmaster is like, I'm nothing compared to this Scholar Hua, because Scholar Hua was able to take on the Reverend of Empty Words and wasn't affected by him, whereas I dropped at the slightest mention of him. Because I hate the Windmaster being so down on himself. It's so frustrating. But yeah, the idea is that Scholar Hua became a ghost from exhaustion and resentment and hatred that he didn't ascend, that he became this ghost, and then he ate the venerable of empty words to become the Reverend. So yeah, that's terrifying. That's terrifying that he's become the Reverend of empty words. Nope. That's how he did it. He's like, yeah, he didn't kill himself. He said he died filled with murderous intent and resentment. I don't think a battered soul would rest in peace. If not at peace, it would thirst for revenge. And so I believe the current Reverend of Empty Words couldn't possibly be the same one that sought you out when you were born. Instead, Scholar Huss stubbornly fought back to the end and bit back at the Reverend. Or rather, Hashan. Ghost-devouring ghosts. When humans eat... they talk about cannibalism, and they say when humans eat humans, their stomach gets stuffed. Yeah, when ghosts devour ghosts with the correct method, they can absorb the other's powers and abilities and use them as their own. That's terrifying. That is absolutely terrifying, right? So that's establishing the fact that this is something that can happen. So, I mean, has Hua Cheng ate other ghosts? Has the Blackwater ate other ghosts? Has Bai Wu Sheng ate other ghosts? Wouldn't put it past him. Qirong, I don't think... Qirong's still into eating people. He's not into eating ghosts yet. I don't think Qirong's figured it out, right? It's a nice little foreshadowing with Qirong, him eating people, that we were like, oh, so ghosts eat mortals. But now we're finding out that ghosts eat ghosts. And Hua Cheng adds quietly ghost-devouring ghosts. So... that's begging the question, has the other supreme calamities done the same? Have they ate ghosts to take their powers? And if not, what do they think about this? Hua Cheng seems kind of reserved about it. Like it's hard to tell whether Hua Cheng, he supplies for Shilian enhanced entity. So Hua Cheng, I don't know if Hua Cheng's ate other ghosts. It doesn't seem likely, but I don't know. But now, the Blackwater, don't know. Bai Wu Sheng would not put it past him of 8 other ghosts. Like, Bai Wu Sheng just like, he's like Oogie Boogie from Nightmare Before Christmas, and instead of like bugs inside of him, it's just all these other ghosts that he's devoured. Wouldn't put it past him. That's that creepy imagery of him just like... Also, I have this cool imagery now of Bai Wu Sheng just like sewn together with the mask and everything, and he's just like Oogie Boogie. Go look it up if you don't know what I'm talking about. It's pretty creepy. But yeah, Shilian says he swallowed up the Reverend of Empty Words and his mind was in complete control. And so the him now not only possesses the ability to curse, but he's clever. It possessed bottomless resentment towards the two of you. Yeah, you've basically, like, Shi Wudu has created this monster. Like, he created a monster. He created this monster that is after the two of them. And it's intelligent and resentful. Like, yeah, no, that's the whole thing about this, is that Shi Wudu has done something so awful. He not only did something terrible in switching someone's fate for someone else's, which is bad to begin with, but in doing so, he did it to someone that was intelligent, had perseverance, was committed and dedicated. Like, it was the worst person to do that to. Not that it would have been good in any situation, but Ha was the type of individual that was so passionate that just, and you wonder if he found out about it and was like, this is bullshit that I'm having this Reverend of Empty Words chase after me, and just spiraled into this murderous intent resentment, came back as a ghost, and just made himself even stronger. I'm like, what have you done, Shi Wudu? Why? So yeah, it's just the idea that he says, even though it already knew the verbal password, it didn't cast a death curse through the private communication array at the start. Instead, it tightened the snare gradually, forcing him to slowly back himself into a corner, like he's been playing with it, right? And so Ming Yi's like, fine, this whole business has happened. So what do we do? What do we do about this? And I like the Windmasters messed up their hair, and they're just like, huh? And they're like, I don't know. He's like, I don't know what to think about my brother. My brother's done these horrible things. Like, what do we do? It's been a heinous crime, harming the life of another, committing it for the Windmaster's sake. And I like the Windmaster is like, I need you to keep it a secret for now. Let me think. Let me think of what to do. He's like, I need to calm down and reflect. And that's the thing. Shi Lian's like, the Water Master was saying that he was going to treat the Wind Master's illness, but what illness was there to treat? It's like his illness can only be cured if his fate was changed again and he ascended once more. So that's the thing that's crazy about this. Shi Lian realizes, like, no, this is bad. Because he's like, the Wind Master's not sick. He's just mortal. So curing his illness, he was trying to sedate his brother, the Wind Master, so that he could potentially find another after his trial to switch with the Wind Master for ascension again. He's just like, I'll just fabricate your ascension another time, and then we'll solve the problem, and it'll go back to normal and be right as rain. That's bad. You didn't learn anything the first time. And that makes sense now why he was so freaked out about the Venerable of Empty Words. Because he was just like, you know, realizing that this was something that he caused himself, right? And Shi Lian's like, this is bad. He's like, although it would be difficult to find another qualifying candidate, who knew what other evil spells Shi Wudu would come up with? So that's why the Wind Master wanted to just leave. He's like, I just want to get away so that he doesn't try doing this. And so that brings up the idea about the scroll being filled with errors from Ling Wen to mislead the Wind Master to make sure he didn't discover the truth. So at the beginning, when Shi Wudu needed to find a qualifying candidate, he had to have had the help of the Palace of Ling Wen. Did Ling Wen really know nothing about this? If there was a heavenly official like the Wind Master who ascended this way, is it possible there was a second, a third, or more? And if that's the case, it would be horrifying and the world would be turned upside down. Yeah, this is bad. This is very bad. Because, yeah, there's no way that Ling Wen doesn't know something about what's going on. They at least are complicit. Them and Pei Ming are complicit in the fact that Shi Wudu has done this to help his brother. So they know about the Wind Master's swap. And who knows if there are others involved. And that's kind of the interesting thing about all of this is that Pei Ming and Ling Wen, you know, bros before hoes, like, they're so fiercely loyal to Shi Wudu. And it's great that they're loyal to their friend, but their friend is doing something awful that has some serious implications, that has ruined the lives of others, driven others to die and become ghosts and eat other ghosts and then come back to attack the very people you were trying to protect to begin with. So it didn't work. And it's had all these bad things happen. And all I can think about is how Feng Xin and Mu Qing interacted with Shi Lian versus the three tumors. Because the three tumors, they all seem like they're ride or die for each other. Like, they joke around and they play games with each other and tease each other. But at the end of the day, they don't correct one another. And they don't try to give advice to one another about what to do. They're just fiercely loyal. And they're like, oh, I got your back no matter what you do, even if it's wrong. Whereas with Shi Lian, Mu Qing, and Feng Xin, even though they weren't best bros like the three tumors, they constantly were trying to help each other be better people. Like, they argued about things and they're like, why are you doing this? This isn't right. Shouldn't you do this? You should consider that. And it led them to having arguments and eventually splitting, but they were trying to make sure that each other was doing the right thing. And it's like, which is better, right? Do you want to have a situation like Shi Lian and Feng Xin and Mu Qing? Or do you want to have a situation like Pei Ming, Ling Wen, and Jun and Shi Wudu, where they're not correcting each other and bad things are happening? So it's an interesting dynamic, but I've been on this roller coaster with Shi Wudu's character. I never imagined I would be suspicious of Ling Wen or being like, girl, what you doing? But that's kind of where I am with her character right now. Pei Ming, I'm like, you're going along with this and trying to help your bro out, but they're clearly doing something bad. But Pei Ming seems to respect the system more than anything. Pei Ming seems kind of like Mu Qing, oddly enough, where Pei Ming's like, well, as long as it works out for the system, whatever. And that's kind of Mu Qing's philosophy as well. But I'm like, Shi Wudu, honey. Like, on the one hand, in the last chapter said, I'm like, I'm glad you love your brother a lot and you want the best for your brother, and they've had a bad upbringing. And I understand you wanting to keep him safe, but it's one thing to sacrifice someone else's life to save your brother. Like, that's bad enough as it is, because you just took someone's life that were meant for greatness and gave it to your brother and caused this other person to die in a horrific, spiral. I mean, that's one thing. But two, to know that the reason your brother is suffering now is because of your own actions, and to potentially be planning to do it again is even worse. It's like, this didn't work the first time. Why are you trying to do it again? Just let your brother go. He's a big kid. He wasn't meant. And at this point, the Reverend of Empty Words, it's just it's compounded. It's not just a venerable of empty words following your brother now. Now it's this combined ghost that's even stronger because of your own actions. Like, I have a lot of problems with Shiwudu. And I'm going on a roller coaster with him. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? So yeah. And so then, so Hua Cheng, I like that all this chaos and horrible implications of bad things happening are going on right now. And Hua Cheng's just sitting there enjoying himself. He's like, oh, the Heavenly Realm's going to hell in a handbasket? What? Who saw this coming? It's great. And then that's when General Pei shows up. And I love that all the farmers are like, why are you here with such killing intent? We don't have killing intent on this farm. And then I love the black ox in the paddy's like just flaring its nostrils, and then becomes this large, buff, rather handsome, and small steel-nosed ringed man. I love that. And they're like, well, ain't this General Pei? What a rare guest. Like, wanted to have like a southern accent when I talk about him. What winds blew my lord over today? Let me say first, we got nothing to do with little Pei. I'm glad he doesn't really sound like that. But yeah. And Shilian's like, oh, it's the Rain Master, which they haven't mentioned Banyu yet, which maybe, God, leave Banyu out of this for now, because the last thing we need is Pei Ming knowing that Banyu's here. Like, she's his fixation, right? Aside from this whole matter. And so then, yeah, I like Pei Ming realizes where they're at, that they are in a very vulnerable position. And the Windmaster says, oh, that ox is from the Rainmaster's household. He's a good guy. I'm like, isn't that the Rainmaster? Isn't the ox the Rainmaster themselves? Maybe not. Maybe not. But yeah, it says the ox is from the Rainmaster's household. So it's not the Rainmaster themselves. Okay. He's a good guy. And so, of course, Pei Ming knows when he potentially has been beaten and is like, yes, you don't have to flatter me. I just want to know if the Windmaster's here. Like, he's being all courteous and polite because he knows his place. He knows the Rainmaster could beat the shit out of him. So that's interesting. I like the crack theory that Pei Ming once maybe had the only man crush he's ever had is on the Rainmaster, but that's probably not the case. But I've talked an hour about these chapters, over an hour. Oh my God. So see, I got a lot more discussion out of these chapters than I thought I would. A lot more out of it than I thought I would. Probably a good thing that I did not read ahead. Probably a good thing in the long run. But y'all, it's so tempting. It's so tempting. So I'm going to be nice, and I'm going to wait a little bit. I'm going to wait just a wee bit until we get to that point. But oh my God, I'm going to wait just a little bit until then. So we'll see, right? But oh my God, y'all. Absolute insanity. Absolute insanity. So I'm so ready for the next chapters. I'm going to read chapters 118 and 119 next. It's actually like 139 to 172. So it's like over 30 pages. So it'll be a considerable amount more than these chapters. So that's what I'm going to be doing next week. But I'll wait a little bit to get a few comments, but then I'm going to dive right into it because this volume, it is like a high-speed roller coaster, and we're getting into the nitty-gritty, and I'm really excited. Now that Pei Ming, I love that Pei Ming has showed up now. Whether you like him or don't like him, or you're kind of indifferent about him, he has this energy to him that you're just kind of like, I want to know what's going to happen with this guy, and that's kind of where I'm at, right? So I'm really excited. I hope you all are too, but in the meantime, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back very soon with more Heaven Officials Blessing. Bye.